tranquil hum of Willow Creek was once a lullaby of suburban perfection, a testament to the comforting illusion of safety that well-kept fences and friendly waves can create. Here, life unfolded with predictable rhythms, where the greatest concerns often revolved around seasonal garden displays or the next community fundraiser. But even in such a meticulously crafted tableau of peace, vulnerability can bloom unseen, fostering a darkness far more chilling than any external threat. What happens when the very familiarity that promises security becomes the most treacherous deception of all? When a vibrant life simply vanishes, leaving behind only an unsettling silence and an undisturbed canvas, the void created screams a profound question. It compels us to peer closer at the quiet corners, to question the trust placed in proximity, and to wonder what an unnoticed witness might have silently captured. Could the keys to an incomprehensible disappearance lie not in a dramatic struggle, but in the subtle, unseen moments recorded by an unblinking eye? The golden light of autumn mornings usually bathed Willow Creek in an almost picture-book serenity. This was a suburb, meticulously manicured, its calm punctuated by the rhythmic whir of sprinklers and the distant chatter of children, a place where the illusion of absolute safety felt as tangible as the perfectly trimmed hedges. Sarah Jenkins, a vibrant artist with an imagination as boundless as her canvases, was a splash of vivid color against this placid backdrop. Her murals gracing the walls of the local library and community center were living tributes to the very essence of Willow Creek, capturing its spirit with an artist's keen eye and a compassionate heart. She was not merely a resident. Sarah was woven into the very fabric of the community she so vividly celebrated. But on one crisp autumn morning, that serene tableau of Willow Creek fractured irrevocably. Sarah's sister, Laura Jenkins, arrived at the familiar yellow cottage, a small bag of freshly baked muffins, a comforting weight in her hand. She anticipated their usual Tuesday morning coffee and critique session, a cherished ritual born of sisterly bond and shared artistic passion. The front door stood slightly ajar, a small detail that first registered as an oversight, then sent a subtle tremor of unease through her. Laura's voice echoed into the uncharacteristic quiet of the home. No greeting met her, no enthusiastic bark from Milo, Sarah's scruffy but devoted terrier mix. An unsettling stillness clung to the sunlit living room. Laura stepped fully inside her senses, straining, registering an odd, disorienting blend of presence and absence. On the easel, a half-finished canvas hinted at a new mural, its vibrant blues and yellows waiting for Sarah's hand. A single mug, still emitting a faint wisp of steam, rested beside a well-worn sketchbook on the coffee table. Every object remained meticulously in its place. No overturned chairs, no scattered papers, no broken glass hinted at a struggle. It was a scene of chilling, unnatural order. This pristine stillness hinted not at a violent abduction, but a silent, unnerving disappearance. Milo's profound absence, mirroring Sarah's, tightened a cold knot in Laura's stomach. A cold dread seeped into Laura's bones, a visceral certainty settling that something had gone terribly, irrevocably wrong. She clutched her phone, dialing Sarah's number repeatedly, her heart hammering against her ribs with each unanswered ring. Frantic, she reached out to neighbors, then friends, her voice growing hoarse with every unhelpful conversation. The shock of Sarah's disappearance rippled outwards, transforming gentle concern into a raw, panicked disbelief that consumed their tight-knit family. "You can't be strong through something like that," Laura would later recount, her voice still raw with the memory it just rips you to pieces. The stark absence of forced entry of any tangible sign of distress only deepened the agonizing mystery. Sarah Jenkins, a woman so vibrant, so woven into the fabric of Willow Creek, had simply vanished into thin air. Her untouched home, a beacon of her presence just hours before now, stood as a silent, chilling monument to an absence that ripped a gaping, uncomprehending hole in the lives of those who loved her, leaving them adrift in a harrowing void of unknowns. The fragmented, desperate pleas of Laura Jenkins echoed through the Willow Creek Police Department's dispatch just before noon. What had begun as a routine missing person report, another anxious relative checking on a loved one, quickly escalated beyond the ordinary. Patrol officers, the first to arrive on Sarah Jenkins' quiet street, stepped from the bright autumn light into the unsettling quiet of her home. The front door, left ajar, felt less like an oversight and more like a deliberate, chilling invitation into the unknown. There was no farewell note, no hurried message, nothing to explain the sudden vacancy. The lingering warmth in a coffee mug, the still wet brushstrokes on an easel, each detail spoke of an abrupt, unbidden departure. And perhaps, most unnervingly, Sarah's beloved terrier Milo was also gone. For the seasoned officers, these were not just isolated facts. They were unsettling anomalies, coalescing into a silent premonition of something far more sinister than a spontaneous trip. The initial patrol unit promptly cordoned off the scene, the quaint suburban street, now marked by the flashing blue and red of emergency lights. The sheer gravity of the situation prompted an immediate summons to the Major Crimes Unit. Detective Alex Vance, a man whose 2 decades on the force had etched a certain stoic determination onto his features, arrived within minutes. His dark, observant eyes swept over the immaculate yellow cottage, its cheerful exterior now concealing a chilling void. Vance moved with a methodical, almost deliberate calm, his attention already processing the disquieting tableau that confronted him. He spoke little, his gaze lingering on the slightly open door, the untouched planters by the porch absorbing the tranquil fade that starkly belied the growing sense of dread within. No signs of forced entry. Detective Officer Ramirez reported, stepping aside as Vance approached the threshold. No ransacking. No obvious struggle. Just empty. Vance nodded his silence, a familiar prelude to intense focus. The preliminary assessment by the crime scene unit began with meticulous care, their gloved hands searching every surface, their flashlights cutting through the sunlit rooms. Every inch of Sarah's home was processed, from the carefully organized art supplies to the neatly made bed. Forensics teams dusted for latent prints, meticulously collected fibers, and photographed every detail, hoping to unearth a hidden narrative. Yet as the hours wore on, the prevailing finding remained stark: no shattered glass, no splintered wood, no overturned furniture. The scene was unnervingly pristine, as if Sarah Jenkins had simply dissolved into the air. This profound absence of overt violence only deepened the enigma, shifting the investigation from a straightforward search for a missing person to a far more complex, chilling inquiry. The focus of the Willow Creek Police Department pivoted. This was no longer merely a welfare check. It had rapidly escalated into a full-blown missing person investigation under highly suspicious circumstances, with the palpable shadow of foul play already extending over the case. The immediate, desperate search for Sarah Jenkins began, but the unnerving lack of any initial answers at her home presented the first perplexing challenge to Detective Vance and his team. The initial hours yielded nothing but an unsettling void, solidifying the terrifying reality that a life had vanished without a trace, leaving investigators with no clear path forward. The once frantic pulse of Willow Creek's search efforts gradually slowed each passing day, bleeding into a week each week, a testament to the deepening mystery. The initial surge of community action, a human tide of volunteers sweeping through the dense woodlands bordering the town, had begun to recede. Their desperate calls of Sarah were no longer swallowed by rustling leaves, but seemed to simply vanish into the growing quiet. Canine units, their keen senses tracking phantom trails, crisscrossed the forest floor, their handlers grim-faced as the hours yielded no discernible scent. Dive teams, clad in heavy gear, plunged into the murky depths of Willow Creek's sprawling reservoir, their powerful lights cutting through the murky water in a futile search for anything that might offer a clue. Yet, as each sun set on another fruitless endeavor, Sarah Jenkins remained an ethereal presence, an echo of a life that simply ceased to be. Detective Alex Vance found himself staring at an agonizingly blank canvas where clues should have been. The sheer absence of conventional evidence was baffling, a silent taunt. There were no broken windows, no signs of forced entry, no ransacked rooms to suggest a violent intrusion. The meticulous processing of Sarah's home had unearthed nothing but the undisturbed order of her life, a haunting tableau of quiet domesticity. Every interview, every conversation with Sarah's friends and neighbors painted a consistently vibrant portrait. Sarah was universally adored, a kind soul who seemed to exist without enemies, a woman whose life appeared entirely free of dark corners or hidden conflicts. She was larger than life. Her friend Eleanor Morris had offered, tears welling in her eyes. Who would ever want to hurt her? The consistent answers, effusive praise for Sarah, coupled with profound bewilderment at her disappearance, offered no traction, only deepening the unsettling void. Vance often sought solace, or perhaps just a grim confirmation of his frustration, in the sterile quiet of the incident room. Corkboards, once symbols of progress, were now plastered with maps, photographs of Sarah, and diagrams of her home, all meticulously organized, yet utterly devoid of illuminating connections. He ran a hand over his tired eyes, the silence of the room punctuated only by the soft hum of computers and the quiet rustle of stagnant case files. Each lead pursued, each alibi meticulously checked, each potential witness interviewed, led inevitably back to the same frustrating point of departure: nowhere. The familiar procedural steps that usually brought an investigation into sharp focus seemed to blur, offering no purchase, no solid ground upon which to build a theory. The sheer weight of non-evidence, a relentless adversary, formed an unyielding wall of silence that absorbed every investigative effort without yielding a single crack. The missing posters, once bright yellow declarations of urgent hope, now curled at the edges of lampposts and storefronts faded by the persistent sun and rain. They had become a visible, somber chronicle of the community's dwindling optimism. The collective worry had subtly transmuted into a quiet, shared grief, an unspoken understanding that with each passing day, the chances of finding Sarah alive diminished. Detective Vance recognized this crushing reality in the faces of Sarah's family, particularly Laura, whose features were etched with a pain no words could alleviate. He saw the mirroring questions in their eyes, reflecting his own gnawing uncertainty. The investigation had plunged into an uncharted expanse, an unfathomable depth of unknowns, offering no direction, no clear path out of the pervasive and suffocating mystery. For weeks, the investigation into Sarah Jenkins' disappearance had become a relentless siege of silence, a labyrinth of dead ends that mocked every effort to chart a course. Detective Vance and his team had pursued every conventional avenue, interviewing hundreds, tracing phone records, and meticulously combing the physical landscape. Yet, Sarah's case remained an infuriating void, impervious to inscription, pushing the boundaries of what even the most seasoned investigators could endure. Just as the collective morale began to fray, a faint flicker of possibility emerged from the most unassuming of sources: a small, seemingly innocuous device mounted on Sarah's front porch. Sarah, like many residents of Willow Creek, had a Ring doorbell camera. These ubiquitous devices, designed for casual convenience and a veneer of neighborhood security, quietly recorded every motion, every delivery, every visitor. In the initial chaotic hours following her disappearance, the footage from Sarah's doorbell had been among the first pieces of digital evidence collected. A rapid cursory review by a fatigued officer, overwhelmed by the immediate crisis, had yielded nothing remarkable, just the usual comings and goings, the mundane rhythms of a suburban home. It was deemed irrelevant, another thread of the ordinary that utterly failed to explain the extraordinary absence. But Detective Vance, a man who believed no stone or pixel should remain unturned, had ordered a comprehensive re-examination of all digital data. The arduous task fell to the department's nascent digital forensics unit, a dedicated yet often unsung division. There, amidst endless streams of surveillance footage and fragmented data, sat Chloe Dawson, a sharp junior analyst whose meticulous approach bordered on obsession. She didn't just watch, she interrogated every pixel approaching each minute of digital recording with the quiet intensity of an archaeologist sifting through layers of static and shadow for any buried artifact of truth. Chloe began her painstaking review of Sarah's doorbell camera footage, slowing the playback to agonizingly precise frames, zooming in on faint distortions, adjusting contrast and luminance with expert precision. It was during a segment recorded just after midnight on the night Sarah vanished that she spotted it, a fleeting aberration, a spectral flicker. It wasn't a clear image, not even a distinct shadow, but a faint, almost imperceptible shift in the ambient light, a momentary disturbance in the otherwise static scene. This nascent anomaly in the digital ether became their new singular focus. The grainy, low-resolution footage was subjected to every advanced forensic technique available to the Willow Creek department. Specialists deployed sophisticated algorithms for noise reduction, image stabilization, and contrast amplification, attempting to coax clarity from pixelated uncertainty. Each frame was meticulously refined layer by technological layer, stripping away the digital clutter to reveal what lay beneath. This unblinking electronic eye, designed merely to announce a visitor, now held the potential to be a silent, indisputable witness to Sarah's last moments. The humble doorbell camera, once a symbol of everyday convenience, was now poised to become the pivotal key, a digital sentinel, holding a profound and chilling secret about the true nature of what transpired in the quiet of Willow Creek. The faintest anomaly, meticulously isolated by Chloe Dawson from Sarah Jenkins' doorbell footage, abruptly became the singular consuming focus for the Willow Creek Major Crimes Unit. What had previously been an abstract digital flicker now offered the first tangible, chilling glimpse into the quiet hours before Sarah's disappearance. For days, The forensic team, driven by Chloe's unwavering precision, painstakingly magnified that fragment of digital information. The grainy, low-resolution video, a mere suggestion of light and shadow, was painstakingly refined frame by agonizing frame, slowly yielding its unsettling truth. Just after midnight, an indistinct figure materialized from the periphery of the screen. The video quality remained challenging, a frustrating blur of pixels, yet enough detail emerged to convey a sense of deliberate, purposeful movement. The figure was cloaked in dark clothing, a hoodie pulled low, obscuring the face, and a baseball cap angled to further conceal their features. But it was their approach, utterly devoid of hesitation or fumbling, that immediately seized the investigators' attention. There was no tentative step, no moment of uncertainty. This was not a desperate, fumbling intruder. This was someone moving with an unnerving calm, a chilling, almost proprietary confidence. Crucially, the figure did not knock. There was no press of the doorbell, no attempt to announce their presence. Instead, the individual reached for the doorknob, and with a disturbingly fluid motion, appeared to use a key or some form of pre-existing access. The door swung open, not with a jarring force, but with a quiet, almost welcoming ease, drawing the shrouded figure inside. The digital timestamp confirmed the exact moment the individual vanished into Sarah's home, disappearing into the same unsettling void that had swallowed Sarah Jenkins herself. Detective Vance watched the looped footage again and again, his jaw tight, a familiar cold knot tightening in his gut. "This isn't random," he murmured, his voice low with grim certainty. They knew her. They had access. Meanwhile, Chloe continued her painstaking work, isolating every minute detail. She zoomed in on the figure's distinctive gait, noting a subtle, consistent sway in their left shoulder, a telltale rhythm. The faint outline of a dark-colored SUV briefly visible at the edge of the frame as the figure approached was also subjected to intense scrutiny, its indistinct shape now holding unexpected significance. Every pixel, every fleeting shadow was under relentless examination, part of a desperate attempt to peel back the layers of digital distortion. The revelation was a visceral blow to the prevailing narrative the department had been clinging to. This was no stranger, no transient threat. This was someone Sarah had evidently trusted, someone capable of entering her home without force, without raising an alarm. The image of this shadowy figure moving with such chilling familiarity in the dead of night transformed the case from a baffling disappearance into something far more insidious, a profound violation of trust. The silent gaze of the doorbell camera had unveiled not a monstrous outsider, but the terrifying possibility of an intimate adversary whose hidden presence had insidiously compromised Sarah Jenkins' peaceful suburban life. The hunt for answers now pivoted from the general unknown to the deeply personal, who among Sarah's acquaintances possessed such dark familiarity. The unrelenting scrutiny of Sarah Jenkins' doorbell footage, initially a frustrating exercise in digital archaeology, began to yield more than faint impressions. Chloe Dawson and her team, pushing the very limits of their digital forensic capabilities, painstakingly refined the pixelated images. Advanced denoising filters and sophisticated motion analysis software were meticulously applied, coaxing clarity from the static. The faint vehicle at the frame's edge, a dark-colored SUV, gradually sharpened into clearer definition. It was a common model, one that could belong to thousands in the sprawling Tri-County area. Yet, as the image gained clarity, a distinctive detail emerged, a jagged, almost star-shaped dent marring the passenger side rear bumper. This unique imperfection, a singular identifier, cut through the anonymity of countless similar vehicles. Simultaneously, Detective Vance's team had expanded their investigative net, cross-referencing Sarah's known associates and neighbors against surveillance footage gathered from local gas stations, grocery stores, and traffic cameras along Willow Creek's main thoroughfares. This arduous process, often yielding nothing but mundane commuter patterns, suddenly struck gold. A dark SUV, precisely time-stamped to the early hours of Sarah's disappearance, appeared on multiple cameras, its singular bumper dent unmistakably visible. The vehicle's trajectory placed it directly en route to and Frares Street. With the vehicle now identified, investigators refocused their attention on the doorbell footage, armed with this crucial new context. The shadowy figure now viewed through the undeniable lens of a specific vehicle began to crystallize. The subtle sway in their left shoulder, first noted by Chloe, became more pronounced, revealing a distinct way the individual held their arm, perhaps indicative of an old injury or an ingrained posture. The figure's general build also solidified a man of average height with a stocky frame. This precise combination of the unique vehicle, dent, the singular gait, and the physical build forged a new, terrifyingly familiar profile. Confluence of these digital trails converged on a single name: Mark Peterson. The revelation detonated like a silent bomb, sending a profound, nauseating shockwave through the very core of the investigation and swiftly through the entire community. Mark Peterson was no stranger, no distant acquaintance. He was Sarah's next-door neighbor, residing just 2 houses away. He was the seemingly affable man in his late 40s, who frequently exchanged pleasantries over their shared fence, offered gardening tips, and even ran errands for elderly residents. Peterson had been among the most vocal volunteers in the initial frantic searches for Sarah, even helping Laura Jenkins organize community efforts, his face a perfect mask of feigned concern. He had offered Laura his condolences multiple times, his voice steady, his eyes conveying a chillingly convincing empathy. The truth of this connection struck deep, a betrayal so fundamental it threatened to unravel the very notion of safety and trust within the quiet confines of Willow Creek. The man who had sat with Sarah's grieving sister, sharing in her anguish, was now unequivocally the prime suspect in her disappearance. The implications were chilling. The predator wasn't lurking in some distant, unseen shadow. He had resided next door, hiding in plain sight. This sudden, terrifying pivot from a baffling mystery to an agonizing betrayal redefined the entire case, casting a long, dark shadow over every friendly face in Willow Creek. The quiet suburb would never truly look the same again. The air in the Willow Creek Police Department's briefing room hummed with a renewed, urgent focus. The digital breadcrumbs, painstakingly unearthed, now pointed squarely at Mark Peterson, Sarah Jenkins' next-door neighbor. Detective Vance recognized the meticulous game ahead. Peterson wasn't merely a suspect. He was a familiar face, a seemingly concerned community member who had publicly expressed his sorrow over Sarah's disappearance. Approaching him demanded calculated precision, a deliberate strategy to draw out information without revealing the incriminating evidence already compiled. Vance and his partner, Detective Lena Hansen, arrived at Peterson's unassuming split-level home late that afternoon. Peterson, a man in his late 40s, with a receding hairline and a perpetually mild expression, opened the door. His face immediately adopted a familiar mask of concern. "Detectives," he began, his voice calm, almost soothing. "Any news on Sarah? It's truly awful." Laura's beside herself. He offered them coffee, gestured to the comfortable living room, the picture of the worried, helpful neighbor. This display was his practiced overture, a meticulously crafted facade designed to disarm. Mr. Peterson Vance stated, his tone neutral. We're following up on some leads. Given your close proximity to Miss Jenkins, we hoped you might have observed something unusual or offer insight into her routine. Peterson's composure remained remarkably undisturbed. He feigned genuine surprise at the notion he might have anything further to contribute, reiterating his condolences and professing absolute ignorance regarding Sarah's whereabouts. He even offered with an unsettling eagerness to come to the station to help in any way I can. He projected an aura of complete transparency, a man with nothing whatsoever to conceal. This unnervingly cooperative stance, however, immediately raised a red flag for Detective Vance, a veteran of countless interrogations. Genuine innocence often bred fear or indignation. Peterson presented only an almost performative willingness to assist. At the police station, in an interview room, stripped bare of distraction, Peterson settled into the chair, a polite smile fixed on his face. He maintained steady, almost unwavering eye contact as he meticulously recounted his activities for the night Sarah vanished. His alibi was detailed seemingly airtight. He claimed he had spent the evening watching a documentary, then retired to bed around 11:30 p.m., sleeping soundly through the night. He reported nothing out of the ordinary, nothing seen, nothing heard. Each answer was delivered with a practiced fluidity, a narrative for seamless delivery. Detective Vance observed his trained eye, picking up on the subtle, almost imperceptible tells. Peterson's words flowed too smoothly, perhaps unnaturally devoid of the natural pauses or minor self-corrections that accompanied genuine recall. There was a subtle shift in his gaze, a fractional deviation from direct eye contact whenever Sarah's name was directly mentioned. It was a fleeting hesitation, barely a twitch, but it spoke volumes to Vance. Peterson's outwardly cooperative nature, his calm and collected responses, were merely the sophisticated outer shell of a deeper deception. His entire presentation was designed to convince, to deflect, to maintain the image of the trustworthy neighbor. But for Detective Vance, the chilling reality was already beginning to solidify. The seemingly helpful neighbor was guarding a terrible secret, and his painstakingly constructed alibi was merely the inaugural layer of an elaborate lie. With Mark Peterson's calmly delivered alibi now on record, Detective Vance's team wasted no time. Their immediate objective was singular and relentless: to dissect Peterson's narrative, to find any seams, any weaknesses in his meticulously crafted story. Peterson had claimed a quiet evening at home, followed by sound sleep from 11:30 p.m. until morning. It was a simple, uncomplicated story, almost too perfect. Vance, a veteran of countless deceptions, knew that true simplicity often masked far more complex truths. The first crack in Peterson's carefully constructed fayade emerged from his own phone records. His assertion of being soundly asleep through the critical hours was immediately contradicted by a flurry of digital activity. Instead of silent slumber, Peterson's phone had pinged off cell towers, engaged in a series of data exchanges, and even attempted 2 outgoing calls between 12:15 a.m. and 1:30 a.m., precisely the window during which Sarah Jenkins vanished. The calls directed to a disconnected number were brief, almost impulsive bursts of activity that directly undermined his claim of profound sleep. This digital footprint, while not directly placing him at Sarah's home, unequivocally showed he was awake, active, and mobile at the pivotal juncture. Concurrently, the task of sifting through broader surveillance networks intensified. The unique, star-shaped dent on the bumper of Peterson's dark SUV, a detail meticulously isolated from Sarah's doorbell camera, became their digital bloodhound. Miles away from Willow Creek, at a 24-hour gas station convenience store on the outskirts of the next county, a security camera captured precisely what they were looking for. The timestamp was 12:47 a.m. The vehicle was undeniably Peterson's SUV, the distinctive dent gleaming faintly in the low-resolution infrared. A figure consistent in build and the subtle sway of their left shoulder with the shadow figure from Sarah's porch emerged from the driver's side, briefly filled their tank, and quickly departed. Slowly, methodically, Detective Vance began to stitch these disparate digital threads together, weaving them into an undeniable pattern. The phone activity placed Peterson awake and actively engaged with his device. The gas station footage definitively placed his vehicle miles away from his claimed location, yet heading directly towards Willow Creek, precisely during the time Sarah went missing. The trajectory of his vehicle, traced through other less clear traffic cameras, matched the movement identified from Sarah's doorbell. Peterson's carefully constructed narrative of a quiet night at home began to fracture under the relentless weight of this accumulating evidence. Each individual piece on its own might have appeared circumstantial, but together they painted an increasingly damning and cohesive picture. The narrative of an innocent, sleeping neighbor was now dissolving, replaced by the grim, undeniable reality of a man who was anywhere but where he claimed to be. Peterson's calm facade, so convincingly maintained during his initial interview, now appeared as a flimsy veil stretched precariously thin over a mounting pile of inconsistencies. The once scattered dots of circumstantial evidence were coalescing, forming a clear, albeit incomplete image of a man who had lied and lied with calculated purpose about his movements on the night Sarah Jenkins disappeared. The stage was now set for the next inevitable confrontation, where the digital truth would collide directly with Peterson's carefully constructed falsehoods. The second interrogation of Mark Peterson began in the same sterile room, under the same unflinching lights. Peterson, despite the growing mountain of evidence against him, entered with the same air of placid cooperation, his smile a practiced, almost unnerving veneer. He reiterated his alibi with a practiced ease, his voice steady, his eyes meeting Detective Vance's gaze with what appeared to be sincere conviction. He maintained his feigned innocence, clinging to the narrative of a quiet night at home, as if it were a life raft in a rising tide of suspicion. But Detective Vance was prepared. He began not with accusations, but with facts laid out with deliberate, methodical precision. The first blow to Peterson's composure came with the presentation of his phone records. Vance slid the printouts across the table. "Mr. Peterson Vance," stated his voice calm, yet edged with an unspoken challenge, "you told us you were asleep by 11:30 p.m. These records show your phone was actively in use, making calls, accessing data between 12:15 and 1:30 a.m. Peterson's eyes flickered a subtle twitch at the corner of his left eye, the only betraying sign. He mumbled something about restless sleep, perhaps checking emails. His initial calm began to waver, a faint ripple across his smooth facade. Next came the gas station surveillance footage. Vance didn't offer a lengthy explanation. He simply placed the still image of Peterson's distinctive SUV with its star-shaped bumper dent on the table. The timestamp 12:47 a.m. glared up from the paper. "This is your vehicle, Mr. Peterson, miles from your home at 12:47 a.m. Your claim of being asleep doesn't quite fit the picture, does it? The color drained from Peterson's face. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and his gaze shifted for the first time from Vance's eyes to the incriminating image. The rehearsed responses faltered, replaced by a strained silence. Finally, Vance pushed the last, most devastating piece of evidence across the table, the enhanced doorbell video. The shadowy figure, now clearly identifiable by the subtle sway in their left shoulder, entered Sarah Jenkins' home using a key. Vance paused, letting the weight of the image settle. "This is you, Mr. Peterson, walking into Sarah Jenkins' home just after midnight. No forced entry. You had a key. Why? In the stark light of the interrogation room, truth often finds its voice not in an immediate resounding confession, but in the profound silence that follows the exposure of a carefully constructed lie. The air grew heavy, thick, with the unbearable weight of irrefutable evidence pressing against Peterson's fragile shield of deception. His calm facade finally shattered. Subtle twitches around his eyes became more pronounced, his jaw clenched, and his hands previously resting casually on the table tightened into fists. His voice, when it came, was no longer calm, but edged with a brittle defensiveness. He launched into agitated, fragmented denials, attempting to deflect to invent new, convoluted explanations, but each word only served to dig his hole deeper. Pressure cooker had reached its boiling point. Peterson's composure had given way to agitation, his feigned innocence replaced by the raw, exposed fear of a man trapped by his own deception. The crushing weight of irrefutable digital evidence, coupled with the methodical obliteration of his carefully constructed alibi, finally fractured Mark Peterson's resolve. His agitated denials, once a torrent, devolved into sputtering incoherence, then an unnerving, complete silence. When he finally spoke, it was not the full, unburdened confession investigators desperately sought, but a fragmented, self-serving narrative, a desperate last-ditch attempt to reshape the grim truth into something far less damning. Peterson began with a strained, halting account of a late-night argument with Sarah. He framed it as a dispute over a perceived slight, a minor disagreement that, in his telling, tragically escalated. He panted himself as the aggrieved party pushed to his absolute limit by Sarah's alleged actions. He claimed Sarah had fallen during their heated exchange, striking her head. "It was an accident," he mumbled, his voice hoarse, his gaze now fixed on the scuffed floor, avoiding eye contact. "A terrible, terrible accident." He described the sudden, horrifying realization that Sarah was no longer breathing, the overwhelming panic that seized him. He then admitted to moving her body-driven. He insisted by an overwhelming fear of being falsely implicated. I didn't know what to do," he stammered, his words laced with a chillingly disingenuous remorse, a performance designed to elicit sympathy. He presented his subsequent actions as desperate, spontaneous reactions, entirely devoid of malicious intent, merely the panicked choices of a good man caught in an unfortunate circumstance. Detective Vance listened, his expression unwavering, allowing Peterson to weave his partial truth. Peterson recounted how he had wrapped Sarah's body in a heavy tarp, then carried her out to his SUV. He spoke of driving aimlessly through the pre-dawn darkness, the silent weight of his actions pressing down on him before settling on a remote, overgrown stretch of land miles from Willow Creek near the old abandoned logging trails. He then described digging a shallow grave in the desperate, fading hours of night, burying her hastily. There was a subtle shift in his persona during this recounting, from defensive to a kind of weary, almost noble resignation, a transparent attempt to garner empathy to minimize the true horror of his deed. And Milo Vance interjected, his voice cutting through Peterson's self-pitying narrative with a sharp, unexpected edge. "What about Sarah's dog?" Peterson hesitated, his eyes darting frantically, his carefully constructed performance momentarily derailed. He was there. He followed me out. I didn't know what to do with him. I just left him. I thought he'd find his way home." The casual, unfeeling cruelty of this admission, despite his belated attempts to feign distress, sent a quiet jolt through Vance. Following Peterson's strained, vague directions, a team of investigators accompanied by forensic anthropologists and K-9 units converged on the remote, densely wooded area. The terrain was challenging, thick with underbrush and fallen leaves, but Peterson's desperate, panicked movements that night had inadvertently created a trail. His fragmented descriptions, pieced together, eventually led them to a disturbed patch of earth beneath a cluster of ancient pines. The recovery effort was methodical, somber, carried out under a leaden sky. As the earth was carefully removed, the grim reality of Sarah Jenkins' fate emerged. Her body was finally recovered, wrapped in the very tarp Peterson had described. And then a detail that delivered a profound, visceral, emotional impact curled faithfully at Sarah's side, his small body still and silent, was Milo, her devoted terrier. He had not run home. He had remained a steadfast guardian of his beloved human to the very end. The discovery was a silent, heartbreaking testament to a loyalty that transcended life itself and a stark, damning indictment of the man who had abandoned them both. The trial of Mark Peterson commenced with a palpable tension that permeated the courtroom, a collective anticipation for the stark truths long shrouded in mystery and deceit to finally emerge. It was a swift proceeding, propelled by the relentless accumulation of digital evidence and profoundly charged with raw human emotion. Every witness testimony, every piece of forensic analysis inexorably tightened the legal noose around the man who had once been a trusted neighbor. The prosecution's case, led by Prosecutor Evelyn Reed, a seasoned legal mind known for her incisive clarity, was meticulously constructed. She began by methodically laying out the digital breadcrumbs that had transformed a baffling disappearance into a chilling act of intimate betrayal. Reed presented Peterson's phone records, highlighting the damning pattern of activity that shattered his false alibi of slumber. She then introduced the gas station surveillance footage, the distinctive dent on Peterson's SUV, a silent, irrefutable witness to his movements miles from home during the critical hours of Sarah's vanishing. But the central pillar of the prosecution's argument, the undeniable star witness, was the Ring doorbell footage. Enhanced, cleaned, and presented on large courtroom screens, it silently played the chilling final moments. The shadowy figure, now unequivocally identifiable as Mark Peterson, his distinctive gait visible, his familiar access undeniable, entering Sarah Jenkins' home. The jury watched transfixed as the digital sentinel played its grim, undeniable truth, systematically peeling away every layer of Peterson's elaborate lies. The prosecution leveraged this silent testimony to systematically dismantle Peterson's claim of an accidental fall, arguing that the calculated movements and subsequent methodical cover-up pointed directly to premeditated intent. Laura Jenkins, Sarah's sister, took the stand, her raw grief transmuted into a resolute, unwavering demand for justice. Her voice, though occasionally trembling, resonated with an indomitable strength as she spoke of Sarah's vibrant spirit, her boundless artistic passion, and the gaping, agonizing void her absence had left in their lives. Sarah was larger than life, Laura stated, tears streaming unheeded down her face, and he took that light from us, from everyone who loved her. David Jenkins, Sarah's brother, followed, his voice laden with a quiet, furious condemnation. He spoke of Peterson's chilling callousness, his profound betrayal, and the unbearable agony of knowing that the man who had feigned concern was the very architect of their family's devastation. Mark Peterson, he declared, his gaze fixed piercingly on the defendant, must never again be allowed to walk the earth as a free person. Peterson sat impassively at the defense table, his face a carefully maintained blank mask, occasionally shifting in his seat, but offering no discernible reaction to the emotional onslaught. The defense attempted to argue the accidental nature of Sarah's death, clinging desperately to Peterson's fragmented, self-serving confession. However, their arguments withered under the relentless, overwhelming force of the digital and circumstantial evidence. That evidence, though circumstantial in its individual components, converged powerfully to paint an overwhelmingly damning portrait of premeditation and a cold, calculated cover-up. After a surprisingly short deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom held its collective breath. The foreman's voice, clear and resonant, pronounced the verdict guilty on all counts, including murder. A collective gasp, quickly followed by a wave of quiet, relieved murmurs, swept through the gallery. For Sarah's family, it was a moment of profound, albeit painful, vindication. Justice, in its most measured legal form, had finally been delivered. The gavel's sharp final crack reverberated through the courtroom, a definitive punctuation mark on the verdict. Mark Peterson was sentenced to life in prison, his future now irrevocably confined within the cold, sterile walls of a maximum security facility. For Sarah Jenkins' family, particularly Laura and David, the judgment provided a measure of legal resolution, an official recognition of their profound loss within the unforgiving framework of justice. Yet it offered no true serenity, no balm for the gaping visceral wound left by her absence, nor for the chilling revelation of betrayal by a man who had lived just doors away. The phantom echoes of that devastating autumn morning would forever resonate in their lives, an unceasing reminder of the profound darkness that had touched their world. Willow Creek, once a cherished emblem of idyllic suburban tranquility, would henceforth carry the subtle yet indelible marks of Sarah's disappearance and the subsequent unmasking of Mark Peterson's monstrous deeds. The comforting illusion of inherent safety, meticulously nurtured behind manicured lawns and neighborly smiles, had been irrevocably shattered. This trauma served as a stark, enduring lesson that even within the most outwardly peaceful communities, a corrosive evil can lie, hidden, masked by familiarity, patiently awaiting its moment. The residents of Willow Creek learned a difficult truth: that vigilance, even in the most seemingly secure environments, had transformed from a casual convenience into a stark, undeniable necessity. Sarah Jenkins' yellow cottage, once a beacon of her vibrant artistry, now stood as a quiet monument to a life abruptly extinguished. On its porch, the humble Ring doorbell, previously a simple device for package deliveries and routine greetings, had ascended to a powerful, almost prophetic symbol. It was a digital witness, its silent memory having meticulously captured the pivotal moments of a heinous crime. Its unyielding record had relentlessly cut through layers of calculated deceit, pierced the previously impenetrable wall of a cold case and ultimately illuminated the brutal truth that led to the delivery of justice. Detective Alex Vance, a man long accustomed to the grim realities of his profession, found a certain, albeit somber vindication in the resolution. The case of Sarah Jenkins, once a maddening void of unanswered questions, had been meticulously reconstructed through a seamless integration of old-school police work and the undeniable transformative power of modern technology. The digital age had provided new, potent instruments in the relentless pursuit of accountability, transforming seemingly insignificant data points into irrefutable evidence. The enduring memory of Sarah Jenkins, her vibrant spirit, her indelible community murals, and the unwavering, heartbreaking loyalty of her beloved Milo would persist, eternally honored by the determined pursuit and ultimate delivery of justice. Her story, tragic though it was, became a profound testament to the quiet yet formidable power of technological insight to confront hidden evils, to tear back the veil of deception, and to ensure that even in the most tightly knit communities, truth, however unsettling, would ultimately prevail. Willow Creek, forever altered now, stands as a poignant reminder of the vulnerabilities that lie beneath the surface and the relentless universal quest for accountability in the face of profound darkness. In the quiet of suburbia, an unblinking digital eye became the ultimate witness to hidden truth. If stories where unexpected digital witnesses expose the darkness hidden in plain sight intrigue you, then subscribe to Shadow Files for more compelling investigations. Don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the notification bell